Hi Toby, I'd like to tell you today about the impact of influenza in the US. As we know, the US has an influenza season each year where more people than usual suffer from the flu. Some people, particularly those classed as vulnerable, develop some serious complications, end up in hospital, or even die. And especially in states with a high population of vulnerable people, hospitals and clinics require more additional staff to adequately treat these extra patients. So the final outtake of the analysis will highlight where the focus for additional staff needs to be. So let's first of all take a look at the population of each US state versus the recorded deaths. So population is color-coded here, whereby the darkest states show the highest population. The gray dots reflect the number of deaths. The larger the dot, the more deaths have been recorded. The state with the highest number of deaths has been California, also the state with the highest population, looking at 36 million and almost 6,200 deaths in 2017. Overall, as a comparison, each state on average records 101 deaths from influenza each year. Now, states here in the northwest of the country are at the lower end of both the population and deaths. Southern states like Texas and Florida, as well as the east and northeast of the country, are tracking upwards again towards the higher end. Now, let's take a look back, say 8 years, to see if this has changed, population and death rates. We can see the distribution is very similar to 2017. So let's go back to tell you about a few changes. Again, looking at California, over 8 years, their population has grown by 7%, but the deaths have actually declined by 10%, so that's really good. Kentucky, on the other hand, had decreased in population by 11% and deaths fell by 8%. And a completely different trend was seen up here in Washington, where the population has grown by 8%, but deaths have shot up by 58%. So we're going to look to this in a bit more detail here on the next page. Let's start again with our highest populated state, California. This whole chart here is sorted by highest number of deaths as a total over the 8 years. California has peaked in 2013 with just under 6,400 deaths. Then it's been trending downwards, but lately in 2017, that has started to increase again, and it's almost at the same level as 2013 again. So do deaths relate to any age groups, population, and the years? This is shown here in this table, whereby the number of deaths is reflected in the size of the shapes, the age groups reflected in the colors. We've got the population on the y-axis and the years down here on the x-axis. For California, we wanted to see what happened between 2013 and 2017, like what's caused these spikes in deaths again. We can see here the highest number of deaths is recorded in the oldest age group, which has decreased here in the years following 2013, but has gone up again since 2017. So this age group is responsible for the increase in deaths. Let's take a look at our second example state. That was Kentucky. Let's remember the population and deaths have both fallen by 11% and 8% respectively. Death rates in Kentucky peaked in 2014 and have been falling since. Now, what happened in 2014? Let's take a look here at our chart. Which age group has shown an increase in deaths, and that's here actually the group that's just outside of the vulnerable age group population, so that between 55 and 64 years, where deaths have suddenly increased. And finally, in Washington, as a reminder, population has gone up by 8% and deaths have shot up by 58%, which we can see here in this chart. So increasing over time, and then from 2016 to 2017, they've just shot up like crazy. So what happened here? We can see that deaths in all the vulnerable age groups have increased in the past year, whereas the younger groups have stayed pretty flat. So we could do this exercise with all the other states and really find out what happened where. Our main key findings so far is that the total increase in deaths across the US outweighs the population growth. So we see a 7% increase in deaths versus a 4% population growth. There's, however, no correlation between the number of deaths and population by state and over time. Where we see a correlation between the number of deaths and is the age of population. That means the immune system of younger people is stronger than that of elderly. Therefore, people from the age of 65 are at a higher risk of dying from influenza. That means we have to ensure that states with a high vulnerable population receive sufficient medical staff to treat their infections. We talked a lot about ages now and different states. How old is the US population? This chart shows population in our latest year of record, 2017, broken down by 10-year age groups starting from the age of 5. Now, the population class as non-vulnerable up to the age of 64 has got pretty even distributions, adding between 13 to 15% to the total population each. The remaining 16% are classified as our vulnerable population. We could break this down by individual states, but I won't be doing that right now. Let's take a quick look how our vulnerable population has developed over time. We can see a steady increase over the past 8 years in population. That's the blue line. Deaths have gone up and down, but lately have been trending upwards again, and there's of course a risk of that to continue in the year to come. So let's take a look where are the most vulnerable people located in the country, because this is where focus for our additional medical staff needs to be. Again, the map looks very similar to the total population. That means focus for additional medical staff needs to be in California, Texas, Florida, and again, the East and Northeast. What is our outlook for next year? This looks at deaths actuals for the past 8 years and the following year. As an estimate, the default chart looks at the total US, but we could also look at individual states. But in total, we estimate that deaths for vulnerable people will increase next year, whereas deaths for non-vulnerable people will remain flat or might even decline, which we hope for, of course. So this should give you a really good idea where our focus needs to be, what is our outlook, and if you have any questions, then please let me know anytime. Thank you.